Welcome to an abbreviated third episode of the 30-Minute Drill. I'm Francesco Terranova alongside Mirosh Demick and Alec Oppenheim. And today, we will be talking about what we learned in the NFL in Week 3 and who are the players and games to watch in Week 4. So the first guy we're going to be talking about is Le'Veon Bell, one of the best rushers in the league, always has that power threat. So, Mirosh, what are your thoughts on Le'Veon Bell? What do you think he could do for the Steelers coming back off the suspension?
Le'Veon Bell has the power to make the Steelers a real dual threat, not with offense and defense, but a dual threat on offense. You have Big Ben, obviously real comfortable in the pocket there with Antonio Brown, obviously one of the best receivers in the NFL, had a monster week last week. And Le'Veon Bell with power running ability, it's just, you see it all the time, typical fundamental football, run, pound the ball in, get the defense to close in, and right as the secondary, collapses in, you free up gridiron for monster passes here. So, the Steelers, they have all the tools successful for a Super Bowl caliber offense, and Le'Veon Bell certainly going to be a valuable tool going down the road in the NFL season.
Yeah, one of the biggest issues with Le'Veon Bell was his suspension and off-the-field antics, as he only played 6 games because of an ACL injury and his suspension. But Le'Veon Bell did make a statement that he looks to be less of a distraction to the Steelers organization. So moving on to Jordan Howard, the new back for the Chicago Bears, straight out of Indiana, the 5th-round draft pick. Alec, what are your thoughts on Jordan Howard?
Well, as we said, Jordan Howard is now the starter there because of an injury from what's his name?
Jordan Howard from Indiana.
No, who's the starter? Jeremy Langford. He's
injured.
He's out for 4 to 6
yes,
weeks
yes,
now.
Yes.
And Jordan Howard's now the starter. I think he can put up some good numbers. Jeremy Langford, he's a threat. Jordan Howard last week had 9 attempts for 45 yards, but no touchdowns. And I think he could also be a big part in the pass attack, alongside with Alshon Jeffrey. He's a good rusher too.
Yeah, definitely. Jordan Howard has been seeing more carries each week, averaging around 40 yards for this season, straight out of Alabama. Like I said, the 5th-round draft pick. Definitely a lot of high hopes for the Bears with Jay Cutler really not doing what he's paid to do in that Bears organization. So moving on to Terrell Pryor, the really all-around athlete for the Cleveland Browns. Mirosh, what are your thoughts on the player of Terrell Pryor?
Terrell Pryor, I feel like he could be primed to have a big number year coming up with the injury to Crawford. I think their rookie out last week with a hand injury. And, the Browns always having their woes at quarterback, similar to the Jets, minus Ryan Fitzpatrick, with Robert Griffin III going down earlier in the season. So, it's always shaky in the quarterback spot for the Browns, so you can't expect Pryor to be getting picture-perfect balls thrown at him week in, week out. But, like I said, Pryor's going to get more touches now that there's a slot in the wide receiver area freed up. And hopefully he can turn it into some receptions, some yards, and maybe some touchdowns.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about the Cleveland Browns quarterback situation. If you noticed on that graphic, he had 21 yards on 4 attempts with a touchdown. And he also, not only quarterback and wide receiver, he even stepped in as a safety. Definitely a really mobile player for the Cleveland Browns. You don't really see a lot of that, especially on both sides of the ball. What a great player in Terrell Pryor. So to finish off our fantasy segment, we have Orleans Darkwa, a power back for the Giants, and with both Shane Vereen and Rashad Jennings being out, Alec, what do you see from Orleans Darkwa for next week? Sorry.
Orleans Darkwa is not your typical running back. More guys like Le'Veon Bell, they're quick. He's quick, he's fast, he can receive. Orleans Darkwa, though, he's a big back. He can get those tough yards when you need them, like 3rd and 3. He can get 3 yards to give you the first down. He's not really a good receiver, but he's their only option with Shane Vereen out for most of the year, if not all of the year, and Rashad Jennings with a toe injury. So they're going to have to rely on him heavily.
Yeah, the injured backs of the Giants has become key for the Giants' offense, but he should be seeing a bigger workload, especially around the goal line and big 3rd down plays for the strong-powered offense, the New York Giants. But don't go anywhere, because when we come back, we will go over last week's games and highlight some of our favorites. Welcome back to the 30-minute drill. Some important games happened this week, including the Giants and Redskins, an NFC East matchup where there was really close games, but then there were also some blowouts, real surprising blowouts in the Eagles and Steelers. If we could see that graphic, a lot of great games happened this week. So, Mirosh, to start off, what were your thoughts on the Giants and Redskins game?
I think myself, as well as a lot of people here around the tri-state area who watch the NFL, we're expecting a Giants victory here. But really, the Redskins caught a lot of people off guard, sneaking out a 29-27 win. Deshaun, 5 receptions, 96 yards, and a touchdown. Really surprising here to see the Giants drop when you'd think a lot of their problems were answered last year, dropping 4 or 5 close games in the fourth quarter. The Giants coming out weeks 1 and 2 and grabbing really solid victories, assuring wins, and you see that fourth quarter monster plaguing the Giants again, so hopefully they can work past it and get on to a more productive end of the season.
Yeah, it seemed like nothing was going right for the New York Giants in that game. Definitely Deshaun Jackson burned them, and a guy like Kirk Cousins, who caused a lot of bad chemistry between him and the team, really stepped up for them. So moving on to the Vikings and Panthers. Vikings coming out of this game 3-0, beating the NFC champs. Alec, what are your thoughts on this game?
If we could see that graphic. The Vikings just outplayed the Panthers. Kyle Rudolph had a great game, and with Teddy Bridgewater out, no one was really expecting much from them. Sam Bradford has done a really good job as the replacement. And
fantastic pickup by the Eagles, by the way, for Carson Wentz and draft picks. Absolutely well done.
Yeah, they got a first rounder and a fourth rounder for him. So yeah, it was a good job by the Eagles too. But it was a lot. People thought the Panthers would win in a close game, but it actually wasn't a close game. They won by over 10 points. That's not what you're expecting from the NFC champions. They're supposed to have a really good defense. Their offense is supposed to be very productive, and it just wasn't. They didn't show up for that game.
Yeah, the Panthers also give them some respect because they have had a very tough schedule, versing the Super Bowl defending champs, getting that win last week, but now they're versing the 3-0 Vikings, one of the last undefeated teams in the NFL. Going on to yet another game, if we can see that Week 3 graphic one more time, the Bengals and Broncos, the Super Bowl defending champs, and Trevor Siemian coming in really clutch for the Denver Broncos, getting them a 3-0 start. Mirosh, what are your thoughts on that game?
Like you said, Siemian coming up really big. You didn't really see him projected to be the starter coming out of Denver training camp at the start of the NFL season, so 4-touchdown game, that doesn't happen every Sunday. So you got to be thankful for young talent coming in clutch. You obviously can't count on it every single week in, week out. So you got to make sure, Denver's got to make sure they keep the opposing points down on the board and really buckle down and don't expect greatness, but expect quality from their quarterbacks.
Yeah,
you can't get cocky.
Yeah, John Elway talked to Trevor Siemian and told him to just do what you do, don't overthink it, and just do what you can on the field, which it looks like Trevor Siemian was really taking to heart, as he did have, like you said, the 4-touchdown game last week. A really great job getting the Broncos, Super Bowl defending champs, to the 3-0 start that they were probably expecting with the defense that they do have in Von Miller. So going on to probably the biggest surprise of Week 3, the Steelers and Eagles game. A 34-3 rout by the Eagles, led by Carson Wentz. If we could see that graphic one more time of Week 3. Definitely nothing I don't think anyone was expecting. What are your thoughts, Alec?
34-3 against this great Steelers offense. I'm surprised that the Eagles defense could stop that offense to just 3 points. Antonio Brown, he had a good game, but D'Angelo Williams, he didn't do much. Ben Roethlisberger, he couldn't really hit anyone else except for Brown, and their defense just was overpowered by that Eagles offense with Carson Wentz. He had a very good game. Jordan Matthews was good once again, and there wasn't enough. They couldn't do anything. Yeah,
the Eagles could make a strong run for the NFC East division, but that graphic definitely doesn't do it justice for the running backs of the Eagles as they combined for 3 touchdowns, led by Darren Sproles, over 100 rushing yards and a touchdown. Really a great game all around by the Eagles, something that they could boost into the next couple of weeks. So that's all from this week's 30-minute drill. I'm Francesco Terranova alongside Mirosh Ademic and Alec Oppenheim. Come back next week to see our first early predictions of the NFL playoffs and go over the start of the MLB postseason.